How's everybody doing? End of the day, you made it through a long conference. I'm the only thing holding you from getting out of here. Hopefully that's not too much of a burden for me to take. So what was that? And the giveaways. The giveaways. Yeah, we can't even hang out too long because there's all that stuff. Anyway, thanks again for being here. I wanted to let you know the title of this talk has changed slightly. It doesn't have any impact on the content, but the title is now Static Sites and Serverless Functions, a Dynamic Combination. And unfortunately for us, static sites is a misnomer. It maybe doesn't mean what you think it does. When you hear static sites, you might think of something like this, just a simple HTML page with some text. Maybe you get a little bit fancier and you get a little image on it and some links. Maybe you get a little fancier and you add some CSS, some beautiful styling for this blog template. Or maybe you take it all the way to the Space Jam website from the late 1990s, which is still up today. If you want to go find it and look at it, it is still around. Regardless of which one of those options you might think of when you hear static sites, you probably hear static sites and you think limitations. But the fact is, the world that we live in tech has changed drastically over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and static sites no longer means what it used to. So welcome to this talk, where I will tell you just how dynamic you can make your static sites by using serverless functions. So a little bit about who I am. My name is James Q. Quick. I consider myself to be three things: a developer, a speaker, and a teacher. And I've been doing each of those professionally for about 7 years now. If you're interested in finding me on social media or on my website, all of it is James Q. Quick. Middle name is Quentin, so there's 2 Q's back to back. Don't miss that. If you want the slides, if you go to jamesqquick.com, I've got a speaking page with a link to this talk at Serverless Days Nashville. You can go and grab the slides. You can follow along. You can grab all the links, all that kind of stuff. You can take pictures of slides if you want to, or you can just go and get them either now or later on. So I am a senior developer advocate at a company called Auth0, which actually just got mentioned in the last talk, which is kind of cool. I am, also a Twilio champion, so we'll talk a little bit about Twilio throughout this talk. But basically, I'm an ambassador for Twilio. I talk about their product and just kind of promote the really cool product that it is. And how many people are willing to help me out during this demo? So at least one person's got to, I know a couple people, so at least you have to raise your hand. Somebody's got to help me out. And what I need you to do, I want you to do, I would like for you to do, if you're on Twitter, to take a picture or just tweet a piece of text, whatever it is, and include the hashtag JamesQQuickTalks, and include me, my handle, JamesQQuick. This will be part of the demo, although selfishly I would love for you to just tag me on Twitter anyway. And as my birthday month, my goal is to get to 5,000 followers, which I may or may not happen, or it may or may not happen, but we'll see. Lastly, we've got some stickers to give away at the end of this. So as I mentioned, I work for Auth0. We've got some Auth0 identity stickers. I've got some stickers from Twilio for being an ambassador there. And I've got some personal brand stickers which have learn, build, teach on them. That's kind of the philosophy that I go by for my personal stuff. But all of that said, let's start out by talking about what static sites are. And according to Wikipedia, the source of all truth, a static site is a static web page is one that is delivered to the user's browser exactly as stored, in contrast to dynamic web pages, which are generated by an application, web application. In my mind, a static site is basically just anything that you can host on a CDN, content delivery network. You can have a collection of files, throw them up on a CDN, and those files just get served directly to the user when they request that site. That's my definition of what that is. And then you get into how do you make static sites? Well, there's some front-end frameworks like Angular, React, and Vue. And I think those are, maybe if you're in the front-end world of web development, that may be a little controversial to consider those to be static sites. But each of them, Angular, React, and Vue, have a build command that you can run. At the output of that build command, you get static files. You can throw those up on a host, and they get served directly to the user when the user requests it. You can also write all of the code yourself, although if you think about the scenario, we'll talk about a little bit, scenario of like a blog, you probably don't want to manually create HTML pages to represent each different blog page that you have. If you do it for a long time, there could be thousands of blog posts, and that's not something you want to do yourself. So you might think about something like a static site generator. Anybody in the front-end world spend a lot of time with front-end development? A couple of hands, not so many, cool. How many people have heard of static site generators? A lot more people have heard of them. How many people have used one? Awesome. So you probably know static site generator is basically a framework to help you generate static pages. The most common scenario, again, is for a blog. And you think about Instead of manually creating all these HTML pages to represent your blog post, you can have some sort of data source. A static site generator can go and grab all of the data out of that data source, and it can use it to generate static HTML pages to represent those blog posts that are then just served directly back to the user when they ask for it. Now, you still interact with a data source just like a dynamic web page or site. The difference is when. So with a static site generator, you interact with a data source basically at build time, and you do a build, and then from the built assets, you deploy them out to a host somewhere. We'll talk about one here in a second. Potential downside to this is you have to do a build anytime you've added new content. So if I have a blog that's set up with a static site generator, I do a build, it gets all the posts. If I add a new post to the data source, I have to then do another build for that to show up in my site. So one of the downsides, the benefits, there's actually several. Speed, security, developer experience, ease of use. I migrated my personal site from WordPress to a static site generator. Talk about it in a second. And it's much, much, much easier from my perspective as a developer to set all of that stuff up and get off and running and have it all configured to do exactly what I want. On the flip side of this, when I talk about dynamic sites, this is basically you make a request to a website. That thing will probably go to a database to get information. It will use that to generate some HTML, and it will ship the HTML back to the user. So it does the interaction with a data source at real time. There are no additional builds necessary. So as you add new content, that content is basically automatically there in the web page because it's dynamically generating it. Benefits, there's no extra builds necessary, and it's been basically the established strategy for years. So a couple of static site generators, if you're familiar with the landscape, there's Nuxt and Hugo and Jekyll and Next and Eleventy. Anybody heard of those before? Some of the popular ones. And what I use is one called Gatsby, which is based on React. So that's what I use in this demo. We'll talk about it in a second. How many people have heard of the phrase the Jamstack? It's kind of like the new hot term in web development these days. I don't have really any content on that other than what it stands for, JavaScript, APIs, and markup. But it's kind of the new hotness, a new generation of ideology of how we build websites by combining JavaScript, APIs, and markup. And I think that's a great example. I think the demo today is going to be a great example of how you pull all these different pieces together and throw them together in combination with serverless functions. So we're at a serverless conference. Obviously, serverless doesn't mean serverless. There is a server. The point is we as a developer don't have to care about what that server is. We don't have to write the code for the server. You no longer have to write code to deploy and host your own service. You literally just write a function, and you'll see a snippet of what that is in the demo. Speaking of demo, what I'm going to show you is an application that I built that allows me to track the talks that I give. So I mentioned if you want the slides for this, you can go to jamesqquick.com/speaking and then click on the link to get to the slides. This is kind of a separate project that does something similar, where I can record the talks that I give. I can receive feedback. This is from a speaker's perspective. This is something really interesting that we don't have a great way of receiving feedback based on our talks, but we really want it. So please interact with the demo that way when we get there. I can display relevant information about the talks, what the title is, what the description is, a link to the slides, that kind of stuff. And then a couple of extra things that I want to add, just so I'm throwing all these things together, is display recent tweets, hint, hint, the hashtag and the JamesQQuick that we showed earlier. Somebody showed me that you did something with that. Thank you, appreciate it. A couple hands. I'll keep bugging the rest of you to do it. I see people are taking pictures and laughing now. You'll laugh to the point where I make you uncomfortable, and then you'll go and do it. We'll see if I can get there. And then lastly, this will allow me to send out email and text message alerts using a service called Twilio, and then SendGrid, which is part of Twilio now, but really cool service to be able to do those things. So that's what we're going to see. Along the way, the technology that we're going to see is Gatsby, static site generator. It's my favorite. I don't necessarily have experience with the others, but I love Gatsby, so I know that I enjoy it. But there are other ones that are really amazing. Trello. How many people are using, my clicker works every other click. How many people have used or seen Trello? Cool. Trello is basically a card management tool, often used as like a Kanban tool. The simple example is you've got a column of things, to do, doing, done, that sort of stuff. I use it for tracking all of my personal content. And just a little code snippet here, inside of a serverless function, I've got a snippet here that adds a card. And what I'm doing is representing each talk that I record as a card in Trello. You'll see more on that in a second. But it's really interesting because I don't have to spin up a database. I don't have to work with a database. I just work with an API. Go back to Jamstack, JavaScript APIs markup. And I can save my data in the way that I want in a really accessible way for me because it's already got a front end built into it. It's Trello, the application. All of this stuff is hosted on Netlify. How many people are familiar with Netlify? If you're not, or if you are familiar but haven't tried it yet, go do it. It's by far the best hosting site for static sites. Not only can it host static sites, it can also host Lambda functions. So all of that's abstracted from me. The only thing I have to do, and this is small, but somewhere up there, I've got a directory called functions. Each one of those files, I've got 3, add feedback, add talk, and search tweets. Each one of those is just a function definition that Netlify will pick up on and deploy and host for me. Inside of here, you can see this is the functions dashboard where after just publishing those files in my repo, it goes ahead and creates those functions. Then we've got Twilio. We talked about this in email and text message alerts. In this case, I'm sending a message to myself, which we'll see in the demo here in a second. And then I'm using the Twitter API. It's like every third click for this. Twitter API just to show recent tweets, to add a little bit of extra dynamicness to the site. And with the JavaScript client, you can call just a client.get and pass it a parameter for what you want to search by. And I'm hard coding it to search by that hashtag that we saw earlier, which if you haven't used by now, you should. Do you feel awkward yet? Awkward. That is awkward. You got me. All right, so let's go ahead and just show what we've got here. Inside of Trello, I've got a card, and this is my demo board for Trello. I've got a list called Talks, and inside of here, here's one that I added beforehand just in case the internet doesn't work for right now. But I do want to show adding one in real time. So let me open up Chrome. Let's go over to the site called Quick Talks, and you can get to this website at talktrack.netlify.com. This will actually be part of the demo too, so somebody do that also. Talktrack.netlify.com. And I've got that one talk listed here, but mainly what I want to do is show you how to add a talk. And in here, I'm going to call this the same thing, static sites and serverless functions. This is at ServerlessDays Nashville. This is 2/27, is that where we are? 2020. Slides, do I have that link? Yeah. And really cool talk. I'll just abbreviate that for now. What this is going to do is when I click submit, it's going to send off to a serverless function that's handled or hosted in Netlify, again, just by including that one function definition, that one file. That function is going to receive the information out of this form. It's going to add the card to Trello, and it's going to return back saying, hey, everything's good. So I'm going to send this. Ideally, if the demo gods are with me, I'd got some extra feedback stuff to add in here. It looks like it worked. We can check out the Trello board. And there it is. So this is this one up here, and someone's already hacked it. I need to add security to this. Who hacked it? Who sent something? Thank you. Yep. Developers, we can't help ourselves from doing that. We can't. I get it. I know. The next step of this is to add auth0 to add authentication to this to make it, yeah, you get where I'm going. Just not quite in time. So I've got an extra talk. Thank you for that. But the one that I submitted came through, which is great. Now, what that also did is let's go into Netlify into the deploy section. Let me do a refresh. If you see on the yellow part here, we're doing another build. That's a little bit small probably. Let me bump that up. It says building. So if you go back to, again, what a static site generator, how it works is as I add new content to the data source, you need to do a build to get that data inside of your website. Okay, we're good with why we're doing that. And you probably look at that and you think, wow, that's really unnecessary. Well, if you think about what this specific scenario is for, it's not for something that I update multiple times a day or even every day or even every week. I only give a talk 2-3 times a month, maybe. So this is not going to be constantly building. It's just when I add a new piece of data. So what happens is in that serverless function, there's a build hook for Netlify. It's just an API call that I can make. And it says, hey, go out and start another build. So this thing is building. I don't know if it's finished yet or not. It says building. And just to show you what this looks like, let's go back to the home page of Quick Talks. I refresh here. And most epic talk ever. Thank you. Appreciate that. Looks like that's finished. And now I've got the talk here, so it's listed on the website. And now you're looking at a static page for this. So you just request to the browser, it sends it directly back. Can I have someone participate in this and leave a piece of feedback down here? You can choose whatever rating. Hopefully it's good. In front of everyone, just do like a demo comment. Later on, leave real feedback. I would actually love that, good or bad. That would be good. Anybody left a piece of feedback yet? On any talk? Somebody? It's going to get real awkward if nobody does it, because then we just sit here. Thank you. I got a few people I can count on. I appreciate that. So when somebody posts feedback, it again goes to a serverless function. That serverless function will add a comment to the Trello card. Kyle, which one of these did you comment on? Oh, actually, I can see a couple of comments on all of these. So, those are the ones that I... Okay. Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. So that's kind of small too, but you see the rating and then a pipe and then the comment. I really like how interactive it was, but the UX was... Yeah, that was a typo. Is that gold? No, it was supposed to be bad. I was like, gold. I was like, wow, I wasn't even that impressed with my UI, but now... All right, so UI was bad. It's got some work. You can see another one came through. Add hashtag to slide next to your handle. Oh, just like in every slide? Cool, I like it. All right, so here's real feedback. This is great conversation to have that I get to have. And now the last part of this is if we scroll to the bottom, this is a static page that after being statically served uses JavaScript and the Twitter API to go and retrieve tweets. The caveat to this is with the Twitter API and a lot of APIs, you've got secret credentials that you cannot include in your front-end code. Does everybody know, like, the browser, JavaScript is not secure? This is actually not a joke. It's really interesting for people who are not that experienced with it, but almost nothing you put in the browser is secure. Anybody can take your source code, they can go grab whatever they want, and they can use it. So because of that, I created a serverless function that has my secret credentials and environment variables inside of Netlify that the serverless function is able to get to then allow me to call it for it to go get the tweets and then send it back to me and display dynamically in the page. See, learning about beautiful static sites, cool. And then this was just for like something, just in case I was really lonely, I had to do this by myself and clarify that it was for a demo that I was working on. So all in all, static site, I don't know what your thoughts of what a static site were coming into this. I doubt it was this. But we live in this world of really cool technology where you can take all these bits and pieces and different tools and frameworks and hosts and providers and all these things and put them all together and just build really cool stuff. And it's a lot of fun. So I hope that this kind of shows you static sites are not really static. Static sites can be very dynamic. And the longer we go, the less and less you can't do with a static site or a statically generated site. And it's just a fun world and landscape to be a part of. And do continue after the talk, after we're actually done, which is in like 2 minutes. Leave feedback, real feedback. I'd love to know what you think about the talk, how I can make it better, do things in the future. And let's come open the slides just here for the last couple. Are we back on this? There we go. So resources is really just one. Again, every third click. I don't know what's wrong with this. If you want to see the source code, you can. So on my GitHub, it's talk track. You can go and find that. And then I want to leave you with a couple things. One is how to get involved with Auth0. So I haven't done anything Auth0 in this demo. But if you're interested in getting involved, we have an ambassador program. As an Auth0 ambassador, we pay for travel to speak at conferences. So if that's the kind of thing that you're interested in, that's a really big benefit. You also get a little bit more tightly integrated with some of the development team and that kind of stuff. We also have the ability for people to write for the Auth0 blog. So if you're a writer, you get paid to write blog posts. Or if you're looking to do it for the first time, you can reach out on auth0.com/blog. Or you can reach out to me, but you can find information about it there. And then lastly, one of the things I'm trying to do is do live streams. And this is part of my job, which is really, really sick. Because as a developer advocate, if I am a genuine member of a community who builds relationships and people look at me and they respect the things I do and they're interested in the things I do, eventually Auth0 kind of gets some reputation too. So I'm trying to live stream. I've been doing it except for yesterday because I had contractors and doing a bathroom remodel. But I've done it for a month straight every week and then a couple of those twice a week. And it's a lot of fun. I love the engagement. I love to work with people. I love to hack stuff and people correct me and learn from them and them learn from me. I love that engagement. So if you're ever interested in joining that sort of thing, reach out as well, because my goal is to just get other people involved. And then lastly, I think I mentioned I have stickers. So if you're interested in stickers, come up and see me. The only caveat is, tell me something about yourself, something you enjoyed about the talk or didn't like about the talk or something fun about yourself. You got to do 15 seconds of talking to me so you can get a sticker. And that's all you got to do. And then lastly, I just want to thank you all for coming. Again, last talk of the day. I know it's kind of hard to stick around, but I think we got a good group here, so I appreciate it. And if you need anything on social media or information about me, myself, you can find me at jamesqquick.com. And I'll stick around here until the closing keynote. So if you have any questions or anything, feel free to come up and talk. Thanks again for coming.